to look into the feasibility of free university education. Student bodies, universities and other role players in education will make presentations to the commission led by retired Judge Jonathan Hare. Last year's Fees Must Fall campaign forced the scrapping of fee increases, but student demands for free tertiary education raised questions of affordability. Commission spokesperson Muswa Ndwandwe says there are a number of questions that have to be unpacked and answered. Today's hearing deals with an overview looking into the whole environment of higher education. Well, for more on that story, we now cross to our reporter, Sipho Stierman in Pretoria. A very good afternoon to you, Sipho. Do give us a wrap of what came out of today's sitting.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. Indeed, it's been a very busy first day of the Fees Commission. Earlier on, we had submissions by the South African unions of students, and of course, we also had submissions by Wits University, all of course debating the matter of free university education for South African students. Now, we also, part of what's interesting about this Fees Commission is that it does not only take submissions from bodies such as student organizations and universities, but it also takes one from public members. And this afternoon we've had two public members who've also made their submissions as to what they think would be the best way forward in terms of addressing the fees struggle here in the country. And one of them is a Wits alumni student here. He graduated recently from Wits in 2011, he tells me, and he just came up with an interesting idea that he thinks that the solution to the country's fees problem is an idea of an online university. An online university, he says, is that, of course, it would cut the administration costs. If you look at universities in their form currently, we have, structures, buildings, they need to be run, there's electricity, there needs to be cleaners. And we are suggesting that we're living in modern times and that needs to change. And the man is actually right next to me. His name is Ntokozo Mahlangu, who is a Wits alumni who came up with this idea of a online university. Talk to us about this idea. How do you think this would work in South Africa?
Good afternoon, and thank you very much. Thank you for your time. So the idea of an online university is it's an online platform, so to say, an accredited university, by the way, where students can access learning material, lectures, tests, etc., from an online platform. So instead of relying on a physical structure such as a university, you would then build the required material into an actual online platform, an electronic channel from which students can actually study through.
Okay, now there are concerns about data to access all of this, because imagine that there will be a lot of PDF, study material that needs to be downloaded. So how would that not also include costs?
It could include costs, but there is the concept of zero rating. So remember, my submission is at a very high level, but looking at that issue, there is the option of zero rating the data for this specific website. So it would be in the interest of our country to educate people, and therefore it would be in the interest to zero rate access to this specific institution or the site itself. Zero rating means that whoever accesses the website doesn't incur data costs themselves. Data itself isn't expensive. It's when it's sold to people. It's when it's sold as a product that it becomes expensive.
Okay, now how is this different from UNISA? Because I'm thinking UNISA does a lot of distance learning, and students also interact with lectures through online means. How is this different from what we have from UNISA?
So UNISA has established that there's a physical structure to UNISA, which comes with costs to run. So what you're saying or what you're asking is a very good question, because UNISA is a bit closer to the ideal of an online university than your traditional universities. But there are still operational costs that come with having to run the building, the fact that there's physical material that people need to access to study. There's still physical textbooks, there's still physical submissions that have to be made. People still need to put pen to paper for that. So if you can take that and put it into an electronic channel, we can then use the ability of technology to catalyze our situation. Fixed resources, apply technology to it, you catalyze it, and you can get more out of your fixed resources.
Okay, and just lastly, while you were giving your submissions there, you also gave us related a bit of your experience as the so-called missing middle student, saying that you actually never applied for NFSAS because you did not want to incur debt. Can you talk to us about that?
That's it, yeah. So I'm afraid of debt, honestly. So what it is that there was a situation. So I was part of the missing middle. Paying for university wasn't an easy thing. I don't know if I sound a bit spoiled saying this, but I had my father trying to pay for my university, which I think is a better situation than most, but he couldn't afford it either. So it's not that we were poor. There is some money coming in, but it wasn't enough to actually cover the cost of education, of tertiary education, which is expensive. So what my experience was that I had to find other ways to study. NSFAS itself wasn't good enough for me because I didn't want to get into debt. I didn't like the thought or the feeling that I'll be studying and then afterwards I have to then pay off aid.
Are you suggesting that NSFAS should be completely a bursary?
I think NSFAS is a great idea. It's just that not everything's for everyone. You know, in the same way that we could have an online university, it may not be for everyone. But yeah, that's.
All right, well, thank you. And so, as you can see, that the Commission is really just cultivating ideas from different sectors of society, from student organizations, from university, academics, and ordinary public members who have a view on this fees matter. And really, that is what the Commission is going to do. It's going to take all of these inputs from these various stakeholders and take them into consideration and give that report to President Zuma.
And now, Sipho, from what you've heard, what are the likely indications? Do you have a feeling that free higher education is simply going to remain an ideal in South Africa, or is it really something that we can see becoming a reality?
Well, that is a difficult one, and quite frankly, earlier on when the South African unions of students were giving their presentation, they did ask the Commission Chair himself, Judge Jonathan Hare, what his thoughts were on the idea of free education in the country, and he simply said that it is still too early to tell which direction the country needs to go to. But some of the submissions is clear that there are students in the country that can afford, and those students who can afford should indeed pay. But then the question is, how do you then determine who cannot afford? And what criteria do you use to determine who needs assistance? And that is what this commission is trying to look at: who is poor, and how do you come up to call them poor, and what criteria are you going to use as a means test? Because just as my guest here, Ntokozo Mahlangu, mentioned that, you know, he was not necessarily poor as a student, but his parents could not necessarily afford all the costs that are involved in university. Because remember, it's not just the fees, it's accommodation, it's transport, it's study material. So there is a comprehensive cost that go into being a student that need to be taken into consideration. And it's not an easy job to determine who then deserves to be given free education, to be supported financially, and who should be excluded from that bracket.
All right, that is our reporter, Sipho Stierman, coming to us from Pretoria. Now, the date for the